Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a story that sounds almost too simple to be true, but the results are absolutely mind-blowing. Imagine it's the dead of winter, snow is piled high outside, and the wind is howling. Inside your off-grid cabin you're trying to stay warm, but your wood stove is devouring fuel like there's no tomorrow, and your heating bills are through the roof. It's a constant battle. This was the exact problem a man named Paul faced in his remote mountain cabin. But his solution wasn't a fancy new heater or expensive insulation. It was something so basic, so seemingly stupid, that his friends actually laughed at him. He dug a hole in his floor. Yes, you heard that right. A simple pit in the middle of his cabin floor. And this one change, this stupid idea, ended up keeping his cabin a staggering 42 degrees Fahrenheit warmer. Stick around, because we're going to break down exactly how this primitive technology works, why it's so effective, and how this mountain man's simple wisdom could completely change the way we think about heating our homes. So, let's set the scene. Paul's cabin is in a region where winter temperatures regularly plummet far below freezing. Like many cabin dwellers, he relied on a wood-burning stove for heat. While effective, it had its downsides. The heat rose, leaving the floor ice cold. This created a constant, uncomfortable draft as the cold air on the floor was pulled towards the stove. His feet were always freezing, and he was burning through a massive amount of firewood just to maintain a barely comfortable temperature. He needed a better way. Paul started thinking about ancient human dwellings, like the pit houses used by our ancestors for thousands of years. These weren't just holes in the ground. They were cleverly designed to use the Earth's natural, stable temperature. See, just a few feet below the surface, the ground maintains a consistent temperature year-round, typically around 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. It's cooler than the air in summer and, crucially, much warmer than the frozen ground and frigid air in winter. Paul's idea was to bring that principle inside his cabin. He decided to dig a pit, about 4 feet deep and 6 feet wide, directly in the center of his main living area. He lined it with a simple vapor barrier to keep moisture out and then covered it with sturdy floorboards, leaving a small, removable hatch for access. His friends thought he was crazy. "You're just creating a cold hole in your house," they said. It seemed counterintuitive. Why would you invite the cold ground into your living space? But Paul understood something fundamental about thermal dynamics that they were missing. He wasn't just digging a hole, he was creating a cold air trap. Physics tells us that cold air is denser than warm air. In a typical room, the warm air from a heater rises to the ceiling, while the cold, heavy air sinks and pools on the floor. This is what gives you cold feet and creates those chilly drafts. Paul's pit acted like a drain for this cold air. Instead of spreading across the floor, the coldest, densest air in the cabin would naturally sink and fall into the pit. This simple act of passive air displacement had an immediate and dramatic effect. The cold air was effectively removed from the living space. With the cold air gone, the warm air from his wood stove, which would normally rush to the ceiling, could now circulate more evenly throughout the room at a much lower level. The uncomfortable temperature difference between the ceiling and the floor, known as temperature stratification, was drastically reduced. His floor, which used to be freezing to the touch, was now noticeably warmer. The drafts that once chilled him to the bone disappeared. The entire cabin felt more uniformly comfortable. But here's where it gets really incredible. Paul started tracking the temperatures. Before the pit, on a typical winter day, the outside temperature might be 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside, with the stove running hard, he might get the air near the ceiling up to 75 degrees, but the floor would remain a frigid 35 degrees. That's a 40-degree difference within the same room. After installing the pit, the results were astonishing. On a similar 10-degree day, the cold air would fall into the pit, which would stabilize at around 45 degrees. Because that cold air was no longer on his floor, the floor temperature itself rose to about 65 degrees. The air temperature at seated level was a comfortable 77 degrees. The difference between the floor and the air was now just 12 degrees, not 40. He had effectively raised the temperature of his living zone by trapping the cold beneath it. The overall effect was that his cabin felt 42 degrees warmer at floor level, where it mattered most. And the benefits didn't stop at comfort. Because the cold air was being managed so efficiently, his wood stove didn't have to work nearly as hard. The heat it produced wasn't constantly fighting a tide of incoming cold air from the floor. Paul found that his firewood consumption dropped by nearly half. He was saving money, saving fuel, and saving himself countless hours of chopping and hauling wood. This so-called stupid hole in the ground was proving to be one of the smartest modifications he had ever made. This concept, often called a cold sink or thermal trap, isn't new. It's a principle seen in nature and in ancient architecture all over the world. Think of an animal's burrow. The entrance might be exposed to the elements, but the main chamber is deep underground, protected from extreme temperatures. Paul simply adapted this age-old wisdom to his modern cabin structure. Now, you might be thinking, could I do this in my home? The principle applies to many situations, but the application depends on your house. For a home built on a concrete slab, it's obviously not practical. But for cabins, tiny homes, or even houses with crawl spaces or basements, the concept is very adaptable. You don't necessarily need to dig a giant pit in your living room. A well-managed basement or an insulated sealed crawl space can act as a buffer zone, preventing the ground's cold from directly chilling your floors. The key takeaway from Paul's story is the importance of managing cold air. Most modern heating solutions focus on generating more heat. Paul's solution focused on getting rid of the cold. It's a shift in perspective from brute force heating to clever thermal management. It also highlights the power of looking to the past for solutions. Our ancestors didn't have high-efficiency furnaces or digital thermostats. They survived and thrived by understanding and working with nature, not against it. They knew the earth could be a source of warmth in winter and coolness in summer. Paul's pit is a testament to that lost knowledge. It's a simple, low-tech, and incredibly effective system that costs next to nothing to implement, aside from some good old-fashioned labor. So, the next time you're feeling a draft in your house or shivering despite the thermostat being cranked up, think about Paul and his hole in the floor. The solution to your problem might not be a more powerful heater, but a smarter way to handle the cold you're already dealing with. Sometimes the most brilliant ideas are the ones that seem the most stupid at first glance. It's a powerful reminder that innovation doesn't always mean new technology. Sometimes it means rediscovering the genius of simplicity. What do you guys think? Is this something you've ever heard of or would consider trying? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. It's truly amazing how a little bit of old world knowledge can make such a huge difference. Thanks so much for watching today. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content on clever low-tech solutions for modern living, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next video. We've got a lot more amazing stories and practical tips coming your way. Stay warm out there, and we'll see you in the next one.